it's so important to have that balance and find joy in things that you do. Whatever you do in life, that you find some kind of passion, some kind of joy, that you get something out of it. And if you don't feel like you're getting something out of it, it may not be worth doing. And I know in some ways that's kind of a privileged thing to say, because not everybody can get out of something. But if you can find a way to find joy in whatever you're doing, please don't forget to do that.
Welcome to the We Are Human podcast, the podcast that dives deep into the lives of those who work in healthcare but do not let healthcare define them.
Each week, we're going to bring you stories from healthcare professionals sharing everything from victories to pitfalls, and most importantly, the ways that they're staying human outside of the field of medicine.
Because while medicine is a big part of what we do, it is not all of who we are. Welcome to We Are Human. Dr. Rubin, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. I think you and I have talked on the phone a lot over the years, but you and I have not seen each other face to face yet. So this has been a long time coming.
A long time coming for sure. And I am just so grateful for you showing up, for you being on our podcast. I know that you stay super busy with everything you do in medicine and outside of medicine, and it's truly an honor to have you here with us.
Yeah, I'm really interested in a podcast like this because a lot of times people think of us as sitting on an ivory tower and we just consume medicine all day, and it's a lot more than that. Like, if people understood what we do outside of work, I think it'll just help bring people together, because we're human too. We've got our ups and downs and challenges in life. And so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So Dr. Rubin, even though you have amassed, I don't know, maybe 4 million people across social media platforms, so majority of the world knows you. But for those that may not know you, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from, what type of doctor you are, things of that nature?
Yeah, so I grew up in the western suburbs of Chicago. My mom was a social worker. My dad's a pediatrician still practicing. And I grew up with medicine in my life all the time. Like, after school, if I needed to be watched, sometimes I'd just be at my dad's office, like in the back room, and hearing my dad chatting with patients in the background or helping shred charts. These were things that I did as a little kid. And so one day it was a take your child to work day, and I was kind of shadowing my dad in middle school. And I'll never forget, there was this one dad who shook my hand and almost broke my hand. He was so strong. And he's just like, your dad has been so instrumental in keeping my kids safe and healthy. It's a very noble profession. And that just has stuck with me ever since. And it motivated me to pursue medicine. And at the time, I talked to my dad about what was medicine like for him. And he would tell me all these stories that really, if you think about it today, it's like a totally different landscape of medicine. In the 70s and the 80s compared to now, medical students back then would have to run to go get x-rays, right? Because there's no electronic health records. They have to get the physical copies of it. They would do a lot of blood draws. They do all these different things that we don't do as physicians really as much. And it's such a difference in terms of division of labor. So medicine is practiced very differently. And I'd say, Dad, you're like a dinosaur. I don't know what medicine's like based on your perspective. Why don't we find something out from other people? And we looked around the area, and there were no like pre-med clubs for high school students or anything like that. And we decided to make our own kind of mini medical school, actually. So my dad has a non-for-profit called Dr. Rubin's Mini Medical School for high school students, where he teaches high schoolers and even college students about the basic curriculum of medicine. And that got me into not only medicine, but just teaching in general, which I think also kind of segued into the social media stuff that we'll get into soon. But I really got knee deep into learning about the basic curriculum of medical school, from the basic sciences, pathophysiology, clinical rotations, doing some hands-on work with physical diagnosis skills, suturing, intubation, all those types of skills that we were teaching high schoolers about, and seeing if it was right for them or not. And it was a great way to help decide if medicine was a career as a physician, as a nurse, PA, NP, what have you. So those early experiences got me into teaching and really interested in medicine, to the point that I ended up at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio, for their pre-professional scholars program. So I was admitted into their medical school conditionally out of high school. So I knew that's what I was going to do. And I really enjoyed college. I had a lot of fun. I play trumpet and piano, and I used to play in a jazz combo, would go to martini bars and play it late at night. And it's just a lot of fun stuff that I got a chance to do and not have to worry about some of the, issues related to like MCATs and things like that. So I was really lucky, and I went to medical school. I loved it. It was just really, really hard though. I think everybody can attest to that no matter how smart you are, medical school is just going to really, really be tough. And so anybody who's listening to this that's in medical school or pre-med, one of the things I always tell people is find something that you love to do, one thing, and never lose it. Always do it. Because if once you lose that, you're not going to be enjoying life. And it's going to be very hard to be able to do well in medical school if you can't find that piece of yourself. You lose it, and everything else is for naught, in my opinion. So always, always, always find something that you enjoy. And we all, talking right now, have something that we enjoy. For me, it was music. I know I hula hoop on social media. I don't showcase the music as much. I like to joke around with that. It's something that I picked up when I was in elementary school and taught myself so that I could be like that cool kid at bar mitzvah parties and win prizes,
That is so cool.
But it was a good way to encourage people to stay fit during the pandemic when you didn't want to go into a gym and you're just like, let's do something a little bit challenging and fun.
Yeah, so Dr. Rubin, I don't know if you'll remember this, but do you remember the deal we made?
What was the deal that we made? We've talked about a lot of projects.
You don't remember?
We have different. Which one are you talking about?
It involves both. It involves both of our passions.
Tell me. You got to tell me because I've
okay,
had a long time.
We made a deal that we would do a hula hoop half marathon together.
Oh,
actually,
that's
it was
right.
a 5K.
It was a 5K hula hoop. It was 5K. Yes, now I remember that. Yes, I will do that with you. Yeah. We'll do it.
Yeah, we got to do it, and maybe Tyler could join. Tyler, what do you think?
I'll say this. I have never been able to hula hoop. So one of my questions on here was like, what is your basic advice? The idea of running while hula hooping, I can't even stand.
There are people who do this. There's actually world records for marathon running while hula hooping.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We looked this. I'm now. Okay, this is all coming back to me now that I'm talking about. I think it was was it like a 4-hour marathon while hula hooping?
Something like that. It was
something
insane.
like that, which is insane. Yeah. I will still take you up for that. We should nice. Definitely do that. And we should raise some money.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome. I'm so glad you brought that up because I think we talked. It's got to be at least 2 years since we talked about that.
Oh, it's been a long time. Yeah.
Because I haven't even gotten to like our social media journey, how you and I cross paths. Let me just skip a few steps here and just say that I ended up now, I'm double board certified in pediatrics and allergy immunology. I got into social media because when I finished fellowship in St. Louis, I was at WashU in St. Louis. I went back to the Chicagoland area where I grew up, but everything was on lockdown, because it was the beginning of the pandemic. And I had a hard time growing a clinical practice when all of the primary care offices were essentially shut down. And as a specialist, you need to build up that referral base and meet with people, but there were no social events and doors were pretty much closed. So I said, okay, I'll go on social media and start educating people and connecting that way. And it really helped. There was a medical student in Canada who said, you should go on TikTok because you do a good job educating people. Because I originally was on Twitter before it became X. So I started doing that. And that's how you and I got connected through that in FIDES with World Health Organization. And I still remember when Tommy made a speech to the World Health Organization, all the doctors, physicians, and scientists were on this call. It was like 200 people. And he's talking about, all of these important aspects of growing a social media following. And the one that I most gravitated to with what he had said, which is, every day you gotta wake up wondering, why are you doing this? In a Mark Twain quote, I actually use the same quote now. When I talk about this, it's just like, the most important 2 days of your life is like, when you were born and when you know why. Like, why are you doing this? You always have to go back to that. So whether it's healthcare, whether it's something that you want to do for fun, like you always have to go back to why are you doing that? Because if you don't have that why, there's no point.
I literally got chills with you saying that just because when I was giving the talk, I didn't know if anybody would remember anything that I said, but the fact that you remember something and is still stuck with you today literally gave me chills. So thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Of course. No, because here's the thing, guys. Like, yes, I have over 3 million followers at this point, but Tommy's like the OG. He's the original guy who I looked up to. He was also kind of a bow tie wearing doctor, not quite because he's like scrubs and buff dude and very athletic, right? But you need to start making content with the bow tie and running a marathon, okay? Just to make me laugh.
We gotta get Tommy a bow tie where it's like both ends of it are like 2 biceps flexing, like
my gosh.
like a little ripped dude.
Yeah. Just get this like curled up here, right? Yeah. That would be fun. But like, so like the two of us are the only bow tie wearing doctors pretty much on that have large followings on social media. There's a whole contingency of bow tie doctors, by the way. They started on Twitter. We had Bow Tie Friday. We would post pictures every Friday for a while. I stopped doing it because I just gave up on Twitter, but some of them are still doing it. It's fun,
That's great.
So we're kind of connected with that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I for some reason, I don't know how I didn't know that you were in Chicago, but that's awesome. So I love Chicago. I absolutely love it. I lived there for 2 months, but one of my favorite things is deep dish pizza. So I have to hear, like, what is your favorite deep dish pizza? And then Tyler, have you been to Chicago? And if so, have you had deep dish pizza in Chicago?
So here's the thing. I know we talk about deep dish and my favorite's Lou Malnati's, but
yes,
real Chicago pizza, though, it's not deep dish, actually. It's tavern style pizza. It's the very thin crust that's cut into squares. And that is actually way better. Like I love deep dish, but like classic tavern style pizza, all my Chicagoans, the followers around me, they know what I'm talking about. Like, because like, yes, for tourists, getting the deep dish is fun. It's different. It's like eating a casserole or a pie, but the true, like, oh, this tastes so good. Like you're up at 3 a.m. and you're just like, I'm craving for something. It's gonna be a tavern style pizza. Yeah. And I mean, I'd be up till like 2 a.m. writing my book. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna heat up a little bit of this type of pizza. That's what real Chicago pizza is. So next time you're in, I will take you for some real.
There we go.
Old school pizza.
Dr. Rubin, I might be heading that way soon. I have not ever been to Chicago, but I think we're working for this book tour coming up. It's gonna be mostly podcasts, but there'll be a couple in person, just with residency, a couple in-person events along the East Coast. But Frances May was even saying that there was a book event in Chicago she wanted me to go to. So I'll take you up on that. I had no idea about the tavern style, though.
You'll see, there's a whole thing on like TikTok that talks about it all the time. They're like, Chicago pizza is not deep dish. It's not.
Wow. I didn't know that either. So when I went to Chicago, I mean, all I knew was deep dish. And so I was only there, I lived there for 2 months, but my family came in town and we only had like a weekend with my family. I was like, it'll be a good idea to try every deep dish place we can. And so over maybe a span of a day and a half, I think we had 8 different deep dish pizzas, which obviously like will make you sick.
Yes,
but it was
so heavy.
Cheese.
So heavy.
It's like
I don't think we pooped for like a month. It was like so much cheese, but Lou Malnati's was by far, in my opinion, the best. It was so good.
No, it's good. It is good. I'm not like, I do really like deep dish pizza, but you can only have maybe 2 slices and you're done.
I mean, you could only have 2 slices. I'm not going to tell you how much I ate.
Well, I'm not running marathons every day, so it's a little different. But speaking of doing new things and outside of medicine, my wife and I have been taking up golfing lately. Like we're trying some new stuff. I've never golfed before, and so that's been fun. We're teaching ourselves a new skill and doing lots of hiking and just exploring, which has been a lot of fun. So for those who don't know, I recently got married, and it happens to be someone who I met through our World Health Organization Fighties connection, actually.
That is so cool. That's amazing. And I love you both. Like, you both make such great content. And so I'm just so happy that you two found each other and found love. It's just so awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So something that you were saying earlier is like the 2 most important days of your life are when you're born and then when you find your why. And so given that, what would you say, I mean, for our listeners, what is your why? Like, what is the why of Dr. Rubin?
The why for me comes down to, it's actually a fundamental kind of cultural aspect of my spirituality with Judaism, which is this concept of tikkun olam, which means to heal the world. And you basically want to leave the world a better place than when you started. And through teaching, even though, with doctors, the word doctor in Latin is to teach, right? And that's why people have doctorates and PhDs and whatnot. And I've really gravitated towards finding that spark in other people to learn something. And so I always want to try to disseminate accurate information for people who don't have the access to it. And I've really enjoyed seeing that because I get so many messages these days of people saying, wow, I didn't realize that there was this black box warning on this one medication called Singular that could cause anxiety and depression. I've been on it for years. And I talked to my doctor about it. I went off of it and I feel so much better. And I did not know that because my doctor didn't tell me that. And we only have so much time in the day to talk about things in clinic because that's, very, very unfortunately part of the healthcare system is in order to keep the lights on, you have to see more people. And that means you have less time per patient, unfortunately. So to take that additional time to teach people about some things that you may not necessarily have time in clinic, and then that gets disseminated to millions of people is just truly humbling. And it brings me a lot of joy to try to help people that way. It's not all that my life is about, but it is a part of me that I don't see stopping anytime soon because I've seen the real impacts of doing this kind of work, which is why I know you guys are doing it and enjoy it as well. Because the knowledge is really power, and to be able to help people have a better understanding of their health it's really been amazing.
I love the way that you put that as far as being able to give to those that who do not have the access of receiving it at all times. And I would say that I think that reach really has gone past just patients and their families, but I mean, even to medical trainees. So I'm an intern, pediatric intern, and we certainly have seen a ton of your videos just in clinic or quick things that like people toss around in the hospital. I know for certain our allergy and immunology team at my hospital is like very inspired by your work because they want to be emulating the way that you are educating and making it human and fun. But yeah, like little things like that where we're trying to learn what's normal and what's not. How do we time manage everything? Just going from being a medical student to being a resident physician. So I say, yeah, your target audience definitely being patients and their families, but you definitely have, I would say in that pie chart, you definitely have a strong chip of the pie that's medical trainees themselves.
I appreciate that. That does mean a lot. And I actually went to a medical conference recently for allergy, and a bunch of people came up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I recognized you. Can we take a picture?" And I never expected to have that level of notice or anything like that. People have been taking notice, and I think that's the real power of social media is that you can really connect with a lot of people more than you realize and impact people in ways that are amazing.
Yeah, I also, going back to what you had said before, I really appreciate what you said about in medical school finding that one thing that's outside. And I think that there's so much that we do to get into medical school. And I feel like the rates, the loops that we jump through are so much harder now. I don't even know if I would get into medical school if I applied now with the same criteria and application I had when I originally applied. But part of that is like showing all these things that you can do, whether it's research and hobbies and all that. And then like the second medical school starts, there's kind of this ubiquitous understanding of, okay, you prove that you have all this stuff. Now cut all that out, like now like focus. And which is so, so ironic. But I remember when I started medical school, I cut out my writing, my music, and the moment I had so much brain fog for like the first 8 months of medical school. Mm-hmm. And the more that I was cutting things out, I was doing so because, oh man, I'm not learning things at the rate that I would. I'm not retaining it. Like, let me cut out more of these things because they're distractors and focus more. And in doing so, I'm making the problem worse. And the second I started putting into my schedule counterintuitively more time for writing, more time for music, it was just like this trajectory. You could see point A and point B in grades and retention. And even so, in doing so, because I had to make more time in the day for those things, I had to reevaluate how I was learning and seeing, oh, wow, this is not an efficient way of learning. If you cut out all that stuff, then you can easily say, well, my job is being a medical student. I have 20 hours in this day. I'm going to study for these 20 hours. So that's better than studying for 8 when we know that's not true. Yeah. So I really appreciate saying that.
There's definitely a cultural shift, I think, because again, like I'm privileged that my dad's a doctor and I've seen what he's had to experience, and it is actually a tremendous shift in terms of our perspective of saying, medicine for a lot of people in older generations was like, this is your life, you live, breathe, and eat it, and especially primary care. Because now there's hospitalists, it's very different. Back in the day, there was a time when physicians would, if they were on call, on staff at a hospital, if they got a call at 2 a.m. and they were on call, okay, like this child may have meningitis. Okay, get them in the emergency room. I'm going to go into the emergency room, do that spinal tap. I'm going to admit them to the hospital. And then I'm going to round on them in the morning before I go into clinic, take calls in between patients, and then go back to the hospital round again and take more calls, and it would be rinse and repeat. And so I lived that as a child, seeing my dad do that. And then it shifted towards hospitalist medicine, which I know Tommy is in that area, where you have physicians who are just in the hospital. And then you have physicians who are just clinic physicians. And so that continuity has been broken, but it does help with the quality of life issues that physicians face, because the burnout is real. Like in residency, Tyler, you're experiencing this. You are constantly on all the time. You are working constantly, because part of the learning is, in order to understand a disease state, you have to see it from start to finish. So that's why a lot of the hours are the way they are, because you don't have a good understanding of what a sick patient really looks like if you're only going to see them for like 8 hours one day and that's it, and you're done. You know, you have to be on service for a month to really see that whole patient care all the way through, from the more routine issues to the more complicated. You know, we have admissions for kids. I remember when I was a fellow and I was rotating on the cystic fibrosis unit, we had, you know, lung transplant patients. There was a patient who had a lung transplant and also needed a liver transplant and was on service for months. And you wouldn't be able to really understand all the nuances of what's going on if you weren't being there all the time. So you know, and so we I think as a whole, as a medical community, especially our this younger generation, we're trying to balance our work life a lot better and not burning out and becoming jaded and you know, trying to come at it from not just a holistic perspective, but just from a you know, just a little bit of a gentler perspective too. Because when you see all these things and you have to do it, it really just hardens people, and we got to get away from that.
Yeah, Dr. Rubin. And so you obviously work full-time as a physician, and then you also, another big part of your life outside of medicine is social media, but with social media is still a lot of medicine, right? Like you're educating about the current events of medicine. You're, you know, talking about outbreaks of certain diseases that are currently going on within our foods. You're debunking myths. You're doing a lot of stuff on social media that still involves medicine. And so how does that balance look like for you? Can you tell us a little bit about your social media? And do you ever get overwhelmed? Or like, no, I'm getting burnt out. This is too much medicine.
Right. So from time to time, I do feel that kind of burnout where I'm doing a little bit too much. But what I've tried to do, that I've learned over the years, is become very efficient in how I make my content, because I'm very adaptable to technology. And when I first started doing this, I had like no idea. And this was before the time of auto captions, right? Like everybody's like, you got to put captions in. But I was like, but there's no auto feature. I had to type everything in. You may remember that. Like it just took forever to make content. It took forever. Right. And so everything's been streamlined for me to a point where it's much easier to make my content, and I don't make it fancy. I talk very quickly and I make a few edits. And so it really does save the time. And then I sprinkle in some silly hula hoop and dancing videos in there to kind of spice things up a little bit, and some joking here and there. Just so that I don't get, because honestly, with the way the world is right now, it's tough. And I felt like a little bit of a sense of responsibility to help a lot of people understand like all these different pieces of misinformation and all the changes that are happening in our lives. So I try to do the best I can to give that kind of information. But then when I'm not doing that, I'm also with my family, and you know, I have 3 dogs now, and there's just a lot going on outside of it that I'm constantly doing things that are not just medicine. I'm trying to get more physically active than I used to be. My wife's training for a triathlon right now, and I'm going to be
what?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. What triathlon? If she needs a coach, I coach. I this is my thing. How have you not told me this? We talk like 3 times a week, and you haven't mentioned this?
That's because we just started.
Okay.
So it's
I'll let you off the hook.
Yeah. So it's going to be in Wisconsin. I think it's called Prairie Path or something like that. She used to be an ultra marathoner, actually. I don't know if I ever told you that. So because of the pandemic, it kind of sunk that, but we're both trying to get back into shape and doing that. I'm going to eventually, I think the first thing I'm going to try to do, like I've done 5Ks, like that's not a problem. But I'm going to try to do like a duathlon first for myself, getting into biking again. Because I used to bike a long time ago, so I'm really trying to make a commitment to myself to do that, to stay more physically fit. Because I noticed, like, in medical school, that was one of the things that I actually did. I worked out like at least 3 days a week in medical school to keep my mind sharp, and I really enjoyed it. But with the pandemic, I got out of the gym, and it's been hard for me personally to get back in because of worrying about getting sick and the extra costs and just something I got to get back into. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm hula hooping and lifting a little bit at home and whatnot. But I know I got to commit to myself to be in better shape.
That's incredible. I can't believe I'm finding this out. This made my whole week. I'm so pumped. I'm definitely going to be following along. So you were talking about your content. I think Tyler's really going to appreciate that I'm bringing this up. So I love your content. I love your educational content, but I also love the content that you do for fun. And one of our good friends, Alimentary Med, who was on our podcast in one of our earlier episodes, he loves this game as well. So I thought we could quiz you on Pokemon versus medicine name.
That's one of my things that I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you okay if I give you some?
Yeah. And if I get it wrong, I don't care. It's fine. It's so fun.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Tyler, do you have any, or do you want me to pick some?
You're the Pokemon master here. You're the one with the boxed out, pristine collection. You got this.
Yeah. So, Dr. Rubin, do you actually collect Pokemon cards?
So when I was a kid, when Red and Blue came out, I was collecting cards for a while. So I have some of the original sets and some original Japanese cards that I still have with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So I still
That's
have
awesome.
that. And I'm going to be gifting some of them to my nephews in the future. I'm really excited. Getting into family members. Yeah.
That is so kind, but can you gift them to me instead?
This is about you. I might. Well, yeah. I think at some point I will show you some of my collection and see what you like.
Oh my gosh, I would be so pumped. We could buy the new cards. I'll take your old ones.
Before you go, Dr. Rubin, have you seen? We talked about this in the other episode too. Have you seen that on Google now? You can capture Pokemon.
No. I did not know Google could do that.
Tyler taught me this.
So if you want your productivity to fully decline and just not be posting anything more on social media, if you search they only have Gen 1 right now, but if you search any Gen 1 Pokemon, just Google search and Wikipedia, stuff will come up. In the bottom corner, there'll be a Pokeball, and kind of like Pokemon Go, you can try to capture them. And if you do, it'll successfully be added into your Google account Pokédex, but harder evolutions you have to work up to and getting, and I think they started to throw in some legendaries as well that you can work up to, but it'll save. So as long as you're logged into your Google account, you can be trying to capture all Gen 1.
All right,
do you get to battle them too?
I don't know yet. I think they just started. It's essentially
because I'll totally capture some and battle Tommy at some point.
Right now, it's a step up from when your internet comes out on Chrome and you can do the little dino jumping game. Yeah, it's essentially at that stage. So
Okay,
got it.
We'll see.
Is it a medication or Pokemon?
All right, so some of these are a little easy, but let's go with the first one. Celebi.
Pokemon.
Pokemon, yes. Do you know which Pokemon it is?
No.
No, okay. You're right. But the one that would be, the medicine similar would be Celebrex.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so Lunala.
That's definitely a Pokemon.
That is Pokemon. You are correct. Lunesta would be the medicine that would be
right.
Similar to that. Let's do, well, you'll know that one. Altace.
Medication,
a blood pressure medication. Yeah. And we'll do one more just for you. No, that one will be too easy.
You gotta do a hard one. I want to see if I can get one wrong, because I was one of the people who made this game.
All right, here we go. Vimovo.
Wait, say it again. I couldn't hear you.
Vimovo.
Demovo.
Vimovo.
Vimovo. Oh.
Vimovo. Vimovo.
Medication.
Oh, that was a guess, but you got it.
I don't even know what that medication is. What is that medication, actually?
It's the brand name for NSAID.
Yeah, see, those are really hard. Like, I actually, when I made that game up, I remember some of our British friends, like Dr. Ids, was like, "Mate, we don't have brand names in England. Like, bloody hell, what are you doing?"
Right, yeah. And I probably butchered some of those names anyway.
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
That's like one of the hard things is we learn all the generic names in medicine, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's like 10 billion brand names and you're like, what in the world is all this?
Yeah, and now there's so many monoclonal antibodies that are exploding on the market. Mm-hmm. And just pronouncing those plus the brand names, and they are used interchangeably. It's like all my content, I'm like, okay, omalizumab, also known as Xolair, or tezepelumab, known as Tezspire. And it's like a mouthful to try to remember. And it's like, I'll never forget actually in fellowship, there's a hereditary angioedema drug that our clinical site helped develop in terms of clinical trials. And one of my mentors was like, yeah, I was in the room when we were making up the name for it. It's called Takhzyro. And we had to call it Takhzyro because, you know, we couldn't say Tech Zero because technically it doesn't go down to zero. It was like all these convoluted rules for making up drug names that made no sense to me. But I was like, okay.
That's so insane. So I think there's something that you and I both have touched on our social media. I don't know if Tyler has, but would be certain names of medications and what they, like how they came about. So if we all know one, it might be cool if we all share one. I can go first. So does anybody know where Ambien came from?
No.
The name of it, so it's AMBN, BIEN. So like in Spanish, it would mean good morning.
Good. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So good AM. Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you guys know any others?
But the Takhzyro one, just to get back to that one, just to explain. So hereditary angioedema is a swelling issue. And so they would call it swelling attacks. And so this medication would take those attacks and bring it down close to zero.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Really, just like leaning into the Pokemon of it all.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. That would have been a great, if that's a medicine or a Pokemon. And then, so what about Lasix? Have you got, I mean, this is a pretty common one. We usually learn it intern year. Tyler, you want to tell us that one?
I'm trying to remember the specifics now. And
I love that I'm pimping you on our podcast.
Yeah, it's like, is it something about volume? The
duration of the medication.
The duration,
so
that's it, yeah.
The LA for lasting and then 6 for 6 hours.
6 hours.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
The half-life of it, yeah. Oh, all fun. Good. I need to stop pimping people on our podcast.
Andy, this weekend, Dr. Rubin, we had our first kind of unofficial Hippocratic Collective Summit where a couple of us went up, and we missed Paul by like 12 hours, by the way, which is crazy. But while we were up there, before we went up, we had an episode with Andy, and I remember when we first met you, Tommy, you were pimping Andy on what what pimping meant, like what pimping stood for, and he couldn't remember, so he was like missing the pimping on pimping. And even this weekend, there was like one point where he was looking over and like thinking clearly. I didn't know if he was editing like podcast stuff, and I was like, "Are you trying to come up with what the pimping is?" He's like, "I'm gonna get it." He was gonna find it.
Did he end up Googling it or anything?
No. He's not gonna cheat. No. He's gonna get it.
Well, or maybe he'll listen to this podcast. So, Dr. Rubin, pimping, which I know you know what it is in medicine, but the acronym is "put in my place." So that's where the pimp comes from.
Got it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, Doctor, a lot of our listeners probably are in medical school or in residency, maybe intern year. So we're going to shift gears here a little bit. Could you tell us a time in medicine where maybe it didn't feel like it was worth it, and then how you got out of that?
Yeah. Third year medical school, I was doing a surgery rotation. And I remember it was some of the most grueling days in terms of time commitments, like getting up super early, leaving it very late, having to read, like very little sleep. And just the way that surgeons were interacting with the students, including myself, was just so negative all the time. And it felt very toxic. And there's many stories I could tell I'm not going to get into that were just, it was just toxic as a whole. And it really just beat me down quite a bit. And I always remembered previous experiences that were tough in my life. And I'd always have this visual about seeing a tunnel and there's something bright and warm at the end of it that I would get inching closer and closer and closer. And even like, I remember when I first like had to run the mile for the first time as a kid, I had that visual in my head, actually, that there's always something that's just about to be better across the corner. And I did visualization and imagery a lot during that month to get through it because I just did not enjoy myself. It was a toxic environment. And that's the thing that I don't think people necessarily appreciate unless they're in it, is that there's certain parts of medicine that are not so great. And that happens. But I knew that I was going to do something completely different. So I knew this is just temporary and I'm going to learn something from it and move on. And I got through it.
That's incredible. What is that like to you? Like, you know, like I use the same thing, like whether it be a marathon or a triathlon, what you guys are about to do, but I use the imagery very similar to you do. So like that you use. So in medicine, what is that like during that process? What was that like?
Well, it's hope for a better time ahead is what it comes down to. And there's a certain warmth to it that when you feel that you're sad, you're down, you're tired. It's just like everything aches, everything hurts to an extent. This kind of imagery can help redirect your focus into something more positive. And that's so important in medicine and any profession where you're, you know, got a grueling amount of hours that you're putting into something and it's not always enjoyable. There's always something to look forward to. And I think that's what that imagery helps with.
I couldn't agree more. And I think also that leans in well to, you know, the spectrum of which you do things outside of medicine. We talk about this a lot, that sometimes people feel that if I can't have something that is publishable or something that is to the, you know, the highest degree possible, then it's not worth the time that it takes. But, you know, for you, you're a great example of, yeah, you have a passion outside of the direct clinical care in medicine with social media. And it obviously is heavily tied to your work in medicine. But at the same time, you are hula hooping at the same time. Like, and I mean, and I don't know, I haven't seen like if you are truly the world's best hula hooper and that is like Guinness World Record here. But, you know, even if it's just something hula hooping in your house, like there shouldn't be a difference between the two as far as the joy and the passion that gives you. We talk about like if you have a Spotify account or if you are strumming a guitar in your apartment alone, the direct benefit that patients can have from that.
Absolutely. It's so important to have that balance and find joy in things that you do. My grandfather told me before he passed away many times, he would say, Zachary, you're really enjoying what you're doing. Do you really like this? He'd ask me every time he'd call me or I'd call him. And I'd say, yes. And he said, you know, I don't want, like, he was a businessman and he actually did not like what he did at all. He hated it. And he did not want that for his kids or for his grandkids. And so he was very focused on making sure that whatever you do in life, that you find some kind of passion, some kind of joy, that you get something out of it. And if you don't feel like you're getting something out of it, it may not be worth doing. And I know in some ways that's kind of a privileged thing to say because not everybody can get out of something. But if you can find a way to find joy in whatever you're doing, please don't forget to do that.
Yeah, I think that's such a simple but profound question. You know, and that we should probably be asking ourselves more often and maybe our significant others more often and just really self-reflecting, like, are you enjoying this day in and day out? And if the answer is no, then I think you're right. Like finding a way out of it or finding a way to enjoy it while you're in that. I think that is just a powerful, powerful question. And then Tyler, so on the question that you're asking, I think a interesting thing I want to ask you guys is on your CVs, because we say how, you know, we think that we should be able to do things outside of medicine that are not necessarily CVable, but is there anything on your CV that it would not be a typical CV item?
Honestly, the social media aspect of it, I think, is what's really resonating. And it's kind of changed a lot of things for me, you know, in terms of being invited to do talks. I've done a lot of different talks for like American College of Physicians, for American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, American College of Osteopathic Internists, just a whole slew of different organizations have reached out to me. And I'd given them the CV and they'd see that whole section. And it's something that's really opened up my ability to diversify what I do and to be able to meet a lot of different people that I wouldn't have otherwise. And so I do encourage people in medicine to consider taking a little bit of time to share something about their lives or educating. It doesn't have to be like what any of us in this group does. It could be totally different. But if you provide some value for people that people can take home a lesson with, I think can really speak volumes.
Yeah. Tyler,
Absolutely.
what about you?
I think the biggest one's probably the fiction writing. I remember when I was getting ready for the interview cycles for residency, there was a lot of hesitancy and fear around those elements, partially because so much had changed. Like I started medical school before the pandemic. So in the time of what we think we know that residency programs want, step one became pass fail. We lost a lot of opportunities from research with like diversion of funding. And so it came down to just step two. And then like, do we still fit this mold? And so I certainly had a lot of fears and maybe some bad advice about like what things I should be focusing on and not. But that part of my life is just so huge to me. It would be crazy to not have it just included. But it was never something that I ever brought up independently on interviews. If that's something people wanted to talk about, then I would let them do so. So that the fiction writing and the musics, Dr. Rubin, I'm a children's young adult author, and then I grew up a jazz and R&B singer. Actually, my dad's the jazz musician. He actually he's a trumpeter. He's a professional trumpet player. So y'all will have to jam sometime. But and so I was more blown away that as the cycle started going on, it's not that those elements monopolized the conversation, but it certainly became how I found out which programs were right for me, because those are the programs that, at the end of the day, you've met all these criteria, you get an interview, it's because you've proven like you can make it here. But now it's like, do we want you as a colleague? Do we want to spend, 12-hour days with you? Are you a good fit for us as a family? And the programs that would lean into those things, like, tell me more about this is so cool. I've actually always wanted to write. How are you doing that in residency? There was, the place that I ended up at, one of the interviewers was like a aspiring poet and was like wanting to like trade writing, which we do now in our program, that ended up being something that I put kind of at the bottom of my CV, and it ended up probably being the reason I found the program that was right for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think it's amazing that you're doing all this writing. I'm about to have my first book come out. Actually,
we got to talk about it. Yeah.
And it's because of social media that there was an editor who contacted me who said that there's really nothing on the market about allergies, and got me in contact with an agent. And so this all started very quickly. I mean, basically last June, and now I've got pre-orders starting next month, May 24th,
oh my gosh,
for a book through Plume, imprint of Penguin Random House. It's going to be called All About Allergies. And it's going to be a lot of the stuff that I've talked about social media, but it's 18 chapters chock full of anatomy, immunology, what to expect at the doctor's office, all these different disease states that we talk about in allergy, like allergic rhinitis, sinusitis, eczema, contact dermatitis, food allergy, drug allergy, vaccine allergies, mast cell disorders. We talk about biologics, immunotherapy, and future directions. So it's an all-encompassing book to help not just healthcare professionals, but the general public kind of navigate these different complicated and confusing issues that, in medical school, and you can tell me what you think, Tyler, but I don't think any of us really got much allergy information in medical school. You got a little bit of immunology, but in terms of these allergic diseases, even asthma, there wasn't a ton that we learned about it. You had to learn either through just being in practice, or, if you were interested in it, and it's not a ton is focused in residency either.
Yeah, you could say that again. I think on one of my allergy and immune blocks, we spent 4 days straight talking about Dectin. I think it was also maybe because the professor at the time their research was in Dectin. Maybe it may have been related. But yeah, I do remember us during that week being like, oh, this is good, but I feel like there's some other things we should be talking about that might be more clinically relevant at the moment.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. So for this writing, have you written before? Is this kind of your first foray into the full manuscript, editing process, publishing process?
Yeah, I mean, I've published peer-reviewed journal articles before, so I've been first author on a couple of papers. One related to seafood food allergy outcomes in oral food challenges in children, and then another in an epidemiologic study on primary immunodeficiency disease. So I've written before and I've published before, but not kind of a long book nonfiction work, right? So basically, once I got that invitation, and my wife was like, "You need to do this. You have to do this." She kept encouraging me because I was like at a point where like I've got too much to do. She's like, "No, you got to do this." And if it wasn't for her, this wouldn't be happening. But I got in touch with one of my other colleagues, Karen Tang. You might know her, Tommy. She's OBGYN, does a lot of content too. She came out with a book, and we've been, friends for a while. And so I was just picking her brain because she was in the same boat, but already had just published when I was getting into it. And so she gave me a lot of, tidbits and tricks, and we have the same agent, which has been great. And they were really helpful in the writing the pitch. I put a lot into it, but then they helped formulate it the right way because I didn't know the formatting, but they helped me with that. And then they got me connected with some amazing people. Several people were very interested because, again, nobody has a book out like this. And once I had some initial meetings about what they were looking for, it just kind of clicked for me because I basically just took everything that I talked about for the last several years and just put it into written form. And so I had all the content in my head that I just had to put to paper and then draw upon stories of patients. I would do it in a narrative form. So when you read this book, it's going to have not just, some of it's going to be a little dry only because you need to understand immunology. There's no way to make that exciting. You have to just know some of it to get the language to then understand the diseases and the treatments and whatnot. And so you get that little bit of the dry stuff out of the way, but I also supplement it with history of medicine. So you're going to find out some really interesting stuff about allergy and antiquity. And I've pulled some resources for that, but then I also interviewed a couple of my followers and then draw upon some of my own personal stories working with patients to weave in these cases with the discussions that we typically do in medicine, talking about epidemiology, talking about the pathophysiology, natural history, diagnosis and management, so all those things are kind of woven in together in a narrative format. And it just flowed well because I talk about it that way in my content anyways. It was something that I just committed to writing pretty much every day for 5 months straight. I was writing every day. I committed to it.
That's fantastic.
Everybody's got different ways to be disciplined in what they do. Tommy's working out every single day or 6.5 days out of the week and, breaking records. And, so everybody's got different ways to commit to something that they're passionate about. And I really enjoyed it. And I'm so excited to be sharing it soon.
I can't wait. You said end of May, right? May 24th?
So pre-orders will be May 24th. The book will be released February 24th of next year.
Okay.
And to celebrate, I am going to Italy for the Winter Olympics.
Oh
my gosh.
Yes.
That is
All
so
right.
awesome.
So I got tickets. I won there's a lottery to get tickets. So I got some, and I'm going to see some figure skating, women's ice hockey. I think there's one other thing.
I think they're adding. I think they're adding hula hooping in this next.
Oh yeah.
That's actually why. That's why
he's actually going to compete.
He's competing.
He's going to get a gold medal.
Secret. First heard that we are human. Dr. Rubin.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So the one thing that I'll tell you about that is in residency at the gym that was part of the university, they had a day where they're like, okay, hula hoop contest. See how long you can hula hoop without dropping it at the gym. And so there was the male competition, there was a female competition, and I did it straight for 2 hours without dropping.
Oh my! Did you win?
And so, I won. I got a bunch of swag.
The
Here's the thing: the previous person was 45 minutes, so it wasn't. It was impressive for somebody else to do. And then I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna come in and.
Meanwhile, I'm the kind of hula hooper that if I want to hula hoop, I will have to manually throw it around my waist and then hope to see how long I can keep the gravity, the centripetal force keeping going along.
Well, here's the thing. If you get a weighted hoop that's the right size, it's not as hard as it sounds, actually. Because if you have that extra weight, you can really... What Tommy's jaw just dropped. What?
Okay, so I'm so sorry for interrupting, but I had to look up what is the longest time an individual has hula hooped. 100 hours.
That's insane.
Over 4 days straight.
They had to have like peed themselves or something. Like you can't.
Yeah, like they have an IV in and they're trying to get the IV not tangled in the hula hoop.
It said with very short breaks allowed for those circumstances.
Yeah, because there's no way you can do that straight. Like that's physically impossible. But that's
yeah.
Does it count? Do they count if like you can keep it going on your arm while you leave yourself and then you bring it back to your hip after?
I mean, you could get rhabdo doing something like that. I mean, that like here's the thing.
Can you imagine getting rhabdo from
that would go so viral. Dr. Rubin, that's your next feat. To try to get rhabdo hula hooping.
I'm not gonna kill my kidneys, man. Dude, no. But I did raise money for the American Lung Association hula hooping for 2 hours. I raised like $5,000 doing that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Tommy
that's the one feat that I could take Tommy to school on. That's the one thing that I could do.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be training for this event that I haven't announced yet, but I might have to switch gears. I might have to put all my time and effort into hula hooping.
Yeah, I remember you sent me a video that you did. I think it was with your wife, right? Where you like were at a store and you're like trying to do it. And I'm like, dude, that's too small. Like, that's why it never works. Because like you go to the store, it's always for a kid. You need the diameter to be the size of basically the height to your belly button. So it's got to be a big hoop. That's why it never worked. Like you don't go to the store. You have to order it online. Get one of those like weighted ones that are padded, like what I have. And it's so much easier. But it actually really does do a good cardio and core workout. You'd be surprised. Like you can do squats. You can do lunges while you're hooping. Like it changes balance and coordination. So it does a lot of things that you'd be surprised.
Wow. I'm buying one. Like as soon as we get off this podcast, I am going to go
to my link tree. I have one you can look for. There's a British hooper who sent me hers. And I have a link that it's like a legit, like there's a whole company. It's like hula dancer size. She's awesome. She's got a whole content on it. And she's like, if you think I dance in hula hoop, she's like off the charts amazing. And she was all self-taught and it's cool. It's really cool.
That's incredible.
Amazing.
Dr. Rubin, it has truly been amazing having you on the podcast. There's a couple things I just want to ask you to kind of leave our listeners with. One would be, where can they pre-order your book at? Because when this episode airs, they'll be able to pre-order. So where could they find that at? Well,
so here's the thing. I have not had my meeting yet to get the exact links to tell people because that's still that meeting hasn't happened yet. But this will be linked to my link tree that you can find. All my socials, you'll be able to see what's going on with it. Probably by the time this airs, you'll be hearing a lot about it. It's called All About Allergies. Pre-orders are May 24th. I am so excited for people to see that. Again, my handle is at Rubin_allergy for pretty much all my socials. The only exception is Substack, which is DRRUBIN, like Dr. Rubin. When you're looking that up, but otherwise it's Rubin_allergy. And I'm really excited to see where you guys go with this, and I'll be listening along too.
Awesome. So they can grab that book and grab a hula hoop.
I was going to say, yeah.
And bow ties too, right?
And bow ties. Yeah, there we go. And then lastly, just for our listeners, what would be some advice that you would leave them with in terms of maybe getting through their careers happily or maintaining their humanity in whatever career they pursue, even if it's medicine or outside of medicine?
Outside of the advice I gave earlier about, one thing that you're passionate about, keep it. Always stay in touch with either family or a close friend throughout the process. Like have somebody you can check in with, make sure that, they're okay, but then they can check on you and make sure that you're okay.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Dr. Rubin, it's been a pleasure having you. We cannot thank you enough. I know, you said those kind words to me at the beginning, but I've definitely looked up to you a lot as well. And think of you as a great friend and a mentor. So it's been awesome having you on the podcast.
I appreciate that. It's good to
It's a pleasure to be able to get to.
Yeah,
so sorry, go ahead.
No, it's nice. I was going to say, Tyler, it was really nice to meet you, and good luck with everything that you're going through. I remember it like it was yesterday when I was going through that process. So it's you'll get through it.
I appreciate that. To your point of having the the person to reach out to and stay connected with. I feel like a lot of people in my direct intern class have become like that. So even through some of the really tougher moments of intern year, we've definitely had each other's back. I will absolutely let you know if I'm in Chicago during this book tour. Maybe we can do like a dual book thing.
That
by that
sounds
time,
good.
yeah, we'll see.
Awesome.
But I really appreciate you coming on. It's a pleasure to finally be able to meet you. And I can't wait to
Likewise.
tell my clinic next clinic day. It was like, hey, you guys, just get ready for the next allergy tidbit that's coming our way.
Awesome.
Love it.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. It was great talking with you.
All right. We'll see you, Dr. Rubin.
Take care, Dr. Rubin. Thank you all for listening. You can listen to more episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like this on the hippocraticcollective.com. That's hippocratic-collective.com. Until next time, stay human.